So I just wanted to talk about what inspires me as a YouTuber and what inspired me to become a YouTuber, just because I feel like I need to make it, recenter myself, and kind of have a better understanding of the channel going forward, and also kind of keep you guys in the loop. Since I'm not that big yet, I haven't blown up. It's mainly friends and friends of friends and people I've met along the journey so far. Not much, and I don't have much growth yet, but I want to talk about what inspired me to become a YouTuber. And from a young age, I was always attracted to the rule breakers, the people who kind of carve their own lane. My favorite books growing up were the Dr. Seuss books, and those books kind of shaped me the way I am now. It sounds kind of silly, but I always liked how he made up his own words just so he could fit his own rhyme scheme. He would make these creatures that don't exist and give them like silly names like a yink, a yak, random things like that don't exist. And he would draw like these interesting creatures, and all of it just came off the dome, off of his mind. And I always loved that about him and his works. And as I kind of grew up, the same thing kept happening to me, where I was following the rule breakers, the people who kind of carved their own lane. Some of my favorite music growing up was, and still is Gorillaz. I really love everything that they've done, and they're not like any other band because they have like their own lore. They have like their own cartoonish style. They also have like cartoons and like these fake music videos and this whole fake band, but even their music alone is something unique and different. They were always having like these really interesting beats that like sound almost cartoonish and outlandish. And then they also have like these weird narratives in their entire albums. Like in Demon Days, they would walk through what happens at night, or how in Plastic Beach they go to a land of the plastic beach, or how in Humans they make an album that's about the future and how punk and pop music will sound in the future. And then now with Song Machine, they made up a whole fake machine where they were gonna work with other artists and make their own music. And another thing that they did was collab with so many people to make like interesting and unique songs that even they wouldn't do. And the same thing with Kanye West, and he's probably my favorite and most influential artist of my life. If you guys haven't been able to tell with all the Kanye music I use in my videos and all the Kanye merch I wear and all the Kanye memes I spew, he always was a rule breaker, and he's doing things back then that people wouldn't do now. And so I always liked how he was always one step ahead of the curve. He was wearing all this preppy, geeky stuff back in like 08, 07, 09. And then pretty soon after that, people started doing that. They started dressing all preppy. And then he was wearing all these hype BC brands like Antisocial Social Club, Supreme. He's wearing all these brands, and then people started following that. And then he started dressing in more obscure designer clothing. Like he was wearing Balenciaga, Louis Vuitton. Like he was wearing all of these designer brands, and then people started biting that apple. And then after people did that, he started wearing all of these crazier, obscure brands. Like he's wearing Guidi boots. He's even rapping about Junior Watanabe, and he's doing all of these crazy things, setting his own path, and people are always following in suit after him because he's trailblazing. And the same can be said with some of my favorite designers. I really like Mega Yacht and the work he's doing for streetwear, because he takes all of these things that we know as kids, these kids movies, kids TV shows, cartoons, these kids books, and he puts his own little Chinatown Market flair on it, where he kind of puts like the logos of all of these high fashion brands, and it's kind of like a meme where you're in the know, where you're like, oh, I know that book, and then once you start looking at it more, you're like, oh, it says Christian Dior instead of the Grooving Tree, or it says Dolce & Gabbana instead of Drake and Josh. And he always did interesting stuff like that, and I always loved that work that he did. And the same thing can be said with Chinatown Market. I know recently they're not as interesting, but back then they used to do a lot of bootleg designs where they would take companies and they would redraw their logo in their own style, and then they would put like a random designer name on it so it looked like it was that actual designer's piece. Like they did a lot of Born Again Christian Dior work, and some of my favorites include this Ren and Stimpy shirt that they did whereas Ren and Stimpy, and then in the Ren and Stimpy font it says Raph Simmons. It's just always stuff like that had kind of interests me, where it was like making fun of stuff. And the same can be said with Demna, because he had a lot of respect for the fashion world before getting into it. And then once he started working on things like Vetements and also leading in Balenciaga's design, he was doing all these crazy things where you can see how he knows about high fashion, because he has those same elements in his clothes, but he kind of memes on it, he kind of shit posts on it, and he makes it his own. And you need to be someone in the know who does something like that. And now that he's kind of popularized that trend, we see other designers starting to follow suit. Mainly stuff like Christian Dior and Louis Vuitton start having a more on the nose designs, kind of like what Vetements was doing back in 2014. And now a lot of fashion brands, big and small, are trying to bite what he's doing over at Balenciaga. And now the biggest thing that made me want to become a YouTuber were the rule breakers inside YouTube itself. Growing up, I was born in 2000, so lucky me, I kind of grew up at the perfect time for YouTube. As a kid, I watched all of those trending viral videos and YouTube poops, and they were always so funny to me. I was like, oh man, I love that. I love how this looks like SpongeBob, but he's saying swear words and he's saying poop and stuff like that. And all that was funny to me. But as I kind of grew up out of that, I kind of grew up with YouTube itself. I started watching gaming content in 2012. As it started booming, I started watching people like Tobuscus and Yogscast. But as I kind of matured more, I kind of looked for more quote unquote mature content. And so as I was getting into my teen years, I started watching like these MLG montages, and they were always funny because, you know, it was like the old YouTube poops, but like it was gamer, it was edgy, and it was like all of this internet lingo that like you had to be in the know to know, otherwise it would mean nothing to you. And so I kind of grew up with that, and so I started watching people like Pyro Cynical, who had like all of these gaming montages where he would do like all of these MLG montages. And then I followed him once he started transitioning into commentary, and I started watching all these commentary people like iDubbbz, Colossal is Crazy, both of which who would talk about subjects, and they would do it with such charisma, and their delivery was so funny, and then their entire premises and shticks were just hilarious. Colossal is Crazy and can literally talk about anything, and it's the most entertaining thing I've ever seen. And iDubbbz used to have some of the best content on the site. He would drop videos about people, and it would be some of the most hilarious things you've ever seen. Editing, and also the stuff he would talk about was hilarious. The jokes he had, the skits he made, everything was so funny. And then as I started watching them, I started remembering people that I used to watch, like Filthy Frank, and I watched Filthy Frank and H3H3 at the time, and they were really funny. I started watching all of the Cancer Crew and their antics, you know, Max Mofo, Anything for Views, iDubbbz, and Filthy Frank. When they got together, they made these beautiful videos. And when they made videos like Human Cake or Vomit Cake or Hair Cake, they got other YouTubers in on it too. And especially in Human Cake, they got some of the biggest names in YouTube: Vsauce, PewDiePie, KSI, Jacksepticeye. They got all of these big names that would never collab with people like that now, and they showed them, hey, it's okay to let loose and kind of make jokes. And we don't have that type of feeling on the platform anymore. Everybody is so uptight. The only place where I kind of see people still kind of joking and memeing around and not taking themselves so seriously used to be commentary, but now commentary has kind of fallen off, and none of the true giants who pioneered it is still there, but there are still some newbies in the platform that were very great. And there's some newbies who are kind of making good strides towards that, like Tom Dark, Turkey Tom, one person. I kind of like Brandon Buckingham's. It's not very commentary-esque, but he does these crazy videos now that no one else in the platform does. Too Mad is someone else who kind of leads the way in like vlogging style content that no one else would do. And that's what I kind of see now in YouTube, is where people kind of carve out their own lanes now. And there's no more like Filthy Frank type creators, or they kind of encompass everything. It's now more so the Filthy Frank of your genre. Michael Reeves, for example, is the Filthy Frank of the tech genre where he makes all of these videos and he doesn't take himself as seriously. He always makes jokes about killing himself, jokes that sponsors wouldn't approve of. And he does it all while making robots and these tech things, and he teaches you how to code, and he builds robots to do stupid things that shouldn't exist. There's Too Mad, and he does all of these vlog style content where he goes out in public and he's just a public menace, but he records it and doesn't take himself so seriously and just makes memes about himself. Makes other people the punchline. There's Brandon Buckingham, who goes out in the world and finds all these interesting scenarios and kind of films them, and he does so in such a hilarious way, like going to the ghettos in America or lighting fireworks of homeless people. It's always so funny whenever he posts. There's Off Canny. They do those videos where they learn something with the audience, like how to bartend, how to cook, how to role play as a medieval knight, how to become a barber. And as they do that with the audience, they do so in such a hilarious way. There's cold ones where they get plastered drunk interviewing their guests, kind of podcast style, and no one else really does anything like that. And so that's something that I saw in the community, in YouTube community, where people are kind of carving out their own genres and becoming less serious in that. And that's why I wanted to do food YouTube, not take myself as seriously, because the food genre, everyone kind of takes themselves so seriously, and the videos are more so about the food and not so much about the video itself. And that's something that I wanted to change, if anything. And I wanted to make funny videos that happen to be about food. And so that's why I started making YouTube videos. And I kind of wanted to realign myself and say this out loud. That way I can kind of find the inspiration to start working on these videos again. It's been a while, but I'm going to keep my head down, keep working on them. Stay tuned, because big things are coming. I'm working on 2 or 3 big videos as we speak. And also, make sure you follow my socials, keep up with me, and let me know what inspired you. Everything's going to be linked down below, and I'll even put some YouTube channels I recommend in the description. But all my socials are going to be in the pinned comment down below. And while you're down there, let me know what inspires you. All right. Thank you, guys. See you soon.